Is Alex Pereira unstoppable? Before we get into that, if you're new here, make sure you subscribe as we have brand new videos every single week. So fight week is here and UFC 303 is this Saturday. Mark and I are going to make our predictions for the main card. So let's start with the main event. We have Alex Pereira stepping up on short notice to fight Jiri Prochazka. Mark, what's your prediction for this fight and why?
I think it goes no different to the previous fight, except this one's going to be an out cold knockout. It's not going to be a TKO finish. I think Alex Pereira puts an exclamation mark against that previous fight and stamps him and stay down Jiri. Don't get me wrong, Jiri Prochazka terrifies the life out of me.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you would not say that to Jiri.
Absolutely not. Absolutely. If I was on the other end of a phone or something, and I was like maybe in Iceland, maybe I would, but absolutely not to his face. I think Alex Pereira gets this done and cements himself. I am here to stay as the light heavyweight champion, and then I'm going to go up and get an heavyweight title shot. What do you think? Who do you think takes this rematch?
Well, I don't care what anyone says. For me, it was an incredibly early stoppage in their last outing. I think Jiri Prochazka is going to get it done this time. I think what makes him so dangerous is his ability to create strikes that people wouldn't normally see, but it also puts him in a lot of danger as well. So he's kind of that double-edged sword. And I really feel like this fight can go either way, but I think Jiri is going to come back and get it done this time. I just think he's too good, right? I think he's so skilled as a fighter. And I think if he can make the adjustments, he can do really well here.
He's very unpredictable, very wild, and it's worked so well for him, throughout his career. But I think you've mentioned before his offense is also a bit of weakness as well, in the sense of these wild strikes. He leaves himself open. If you get touched by Alex Pereira, he don't really like to try and pepper you. He's going for the headshot kill. He's a hitman. But Jiri Prochazka, he has all the skills in order to get this done. There's part of me that wants him to win, because then we'll get a trilogy.
Yeah, that'd be so sick, wouldn't it? And the thing is, they're both so active as well. They've fought literally the exact same cards, this year already, and late last year. So it just seemed like, okay, brilliant. Maybe they could fight again, November, December time, take a bit of time away. It'd be great. It'd be a banger fight. But
I think Jiri Prochazka, I think Jiri Prochazka and Alex Pereira are the absolute saving graces of the light heavyweight division.
Without a shadow of a doubt.
So active, so entertaining. And we all know light heavyweight has been up and down since 2020 when John Jones took his ball and went home for a little while. But I've fallen out with John Jones. I think it's quite evident in there that Northernlights were bored of the talk about John Jones.
Definitely.
They're here to stay. Always tune in to watch their exciting fights.
Yeah, definitely. But with them being such workhorses of this division and stepping up on such short notice, do you think this is going to have adverse effects for either of them? Stepping up on what, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, is it? It's a very, very quick turnaround for both of them.
Well, I think Alex Pereira, he just goes home and, shines his circuits and makes sure his Terminator body is still in order. So I don't really think he's going to be off-season, if you will. Jiri Prochazka, he's probably just in the woods chopping a tree with a bloody sword somewhere. I don't think he has an off-season either. This isn't them. You can't imagine a scenario where it's them off the couch, can you? These two are absolute powerhouses, and they are machines, workhorses, like you say, always ready. And I'm thankful for it. Yeah. This is why you get these late replacement cards, and some could argue that this card is even better now.
Yeah, I definitely think it is, to be honest. I mean, we know I'm a big Conor fan, and we won't talk about it too much or at all, really. But even I realise this is a much better card. As a UFC fan, this is a much more entertaining fight, which I didn't think I'd be saying about Michael Chandler. But we'll probably maybe talk about it in a few weeks' time if anything happens. But I'm not sure I necessarily agree. I think this may be issues for Alex in some ways. I think, and that's why I'm leaning for Jiri on this, because both are definitely active all the time. They're physically in great condition. They're both working out consistently. But Alex Pereira was on like a press tour, and he was on like a holidays, his trip all around the world, and he's a big, big guy. He has got to cut a lot of weight, whereas Jiri is a little bit small for the division. Like, I think he could cut down to the division below if he really, really dieted and really put that effort in. He could maybe do it. And I think for Alex, short notice, it's going to be a lot of weight that he's going to have to shift. And I think it's going to give him a lot of problems. And apparently he's got a broken toe as well. So I don't think he's going to be 100% in this fight.
It's a good point, and it is something obviously to take into consideration. But I think as keen as Alex is, he's proved he's got the credentials. You know what I mean? If he didn't think that he was active, he wouldn't take it. Yuri as well. You know, he. Do you remember when he got injured a couple of years ago and he flat out just said, "No, I'm vacating the title. That's it. I don't want
Yeah,
to hold the
what a
division."
hero, right?
Take your hat off to that, honestly. I mean, I know it's had its ups and downs, but at least he didn't piss around for
Like
a
a
couple of
certain
years. You know,
someone.
yeah, like a certain goat, more of a pissing donkey for that. But you know what I mean. Anyway, enough of that.
But yeah, so while we're talking about the title and stuff, and Yuri's obviously he vacated the title a while ago. If he loses to Alex here, do you think that's it? We'll never see him towards that title picture ever again.
No, I think he's still young enough and he's still got the skills. He's puts on entertaining fights. He's cracking. We watched, the Alexander Rakic fight. As weird of a fight as it was, you looked at Yuri's game plan. You're like, I don't get it. I don't understand what it is. But you watch that; it was entertaining as hell.
Yeah.
And he's proved that he can still hang with the top dogs. Maybe not necessarily Alex. Maybe he'll have to do a couple of other fights again because the UFC they're a little bit reluctant to just keep giving rematch after rematch, unless you call Max Holloway.
Yeah, I was just
But
gonna say
that was for good reason, though, wasn't it? But
yeah.
I don't think this would if he loses at 300 to Alex Pereira. I don't think this is the last we'll see of Europe Prochazka in a title shot at all.
No, I agree. I think we will see him fight for a title again, but not while Alex is still champion. I think if once Alex retires, then yeah, because I think he's so good. He's such a high level fighter. And though, you never know. With the light heavyweight division, it's so stop and start. It's all over the place. We could end up seeing Alex and Yuri again by the end of the year at this rate, just because
It is
there's no real credible contenders, is there? Yeah, there's Ankalaev, but he seems very like, oh, I'm not sure when I'm going to fight, and he's messing about. And it's like, well, if not Yuri again, who else? Literally, right? That division is so, it's very, very shallow.
well. I remember Ankalaev saying, "Oh, wouldn't mind a fight in October with Alex," and Alex, no, I want to fight before then. So
Yeah.
you're like, is the champion and he's wanting to be active. He's the one pushing for this. I think that's when you can sort of look at it and go, yeah, he's not here just for a payday. He ain't here just for any sort of fame. He's just a killer.
Yeah.
That's him. You know, and Ankalaev, yeah, he might be there, but it'll always feel like he doesn't necessarily completely deserve it.
I agree. Yeah, definitely. Especially after his last few performances, especially what he beat Johnny Walker. It's like, well, what does that get you a title shot? I don't think so. And then that close fight with Jan, and then cheating before with Johnny Walker. It's like, nah, you don't deserve a title shot. And especially, I think he wants to do it in Abu Dhabi, and it's like, well, why should Alex do it on your home turf, mate? Right?
Yeah.
It should, he's the champion. It should be him. But we'll see how it goes, and we'll see what happens in the next few months or so. But Mike, in the co-main event, we have obviously your favorite fighter, Brian Ortega, facing Diego Lopez. Short notice. What's your prediction for this fight and why?
I hope Diego batters the life out of Brian Ortega. Why is he in the co-main event? Can anyone remember him being in the UFC? Honestly, it's a joke. Like he's so inconsistent with his fights. It's as rare as rocking or shit. You actually see him in the cage, isn't it? Though that's just how it is with Brian Ortega. And yeah, he's when he's actually in there, he performs really well. But I just, when there's just some fighters, I have no other reason for it. I just don't like the guy.
Yeah,
And if
sometimes it happens,
Diego
doesn't
can
it?
get this done, that is such a career boost for him. So I do hope that he does get it done just to give us another big name contender rather than just let's throw someone else up against the top ones who we've seen there before.
Yeah.
What do you think? Do you think Lopez has got a shot against the veteran in Brian Ortega?
I really think he does. I am going Lopez with this fight. I think he's fantastic on the feet. He's fantastic on the ground. He's athletic. He's strong. He's young. I think he's got everything in the tool bag to beat Brian Ortega. But as we saw the other day, when Ikram stepped up to fight Robert Whitaker, there is real levels to this sport. And yeah, Lopez has looked fantastic, but how good will he look against a top contender like Ortega? And that's what worries me. To be honest, with this prediction, it's very, it's very
It's
back and forth. I'm not 100% sure until they're in that octagon and see how Lopez deals with this high level opponent. Because, yeah, Ortega doesn't fight enough for me to be really a big fan of him, but he is high level. He's one of the top featherweights in the division right now,
he,
isn't
he
he?
always shows up, but honestly, I think inactivity is something. It's one of my biggest pet peeves with the sport.
Yeah.
It just in the sense, oh, we won't go into that. It doesn't really matter. But I'm with you. Like, I'm going Diego Lopez, but that's more a heart decision rather than my head.
Yeah.
You look at it realistically, and you're like, well, you've got the seasoned veteran in Brian Ortega, and then you've got Diego Lopez, who is a great fighter, and he got a fantastic finish at UFC 300.
Yeah.
But this is a big jump for him, you
Huge
know.
jump.
So we'll just see. This is what makes it so exciting, right? You've got another contender chomping at the bit, wanting to break through and prove that he is one of the top dogs. If he gets through Brian Ortega,
Yeah.
that secures him almost a title shot.
Yeah, right. Well, that leads on to my next question. Like, do you think if he can get to through Ortega, that puts him right at the top of the pile? He could. Do you think he could be fighting for a title within the next year or so?
Well, we'll have to see what happens with our boy Volkanovski in the rematch with Ilya. We'll have to see how that goes.
And if Ilya ever bloody fights, God, it's
Well,
terrible.
yeah, there is that. He's another one though, isn't he? He doesn't fight too often, but when he does, he shows up,
Yeah,
and
that's true.
it is amazing. As much as it broke my heart when he knocked our boy out, um, you know, it's just I'm talking about Volkanovski, not Bryce Mitchell here.
Well, Bryce Mitchell's my boy as well. I do like him.
Yeah,
But, then, Mark, we move on now to another short notice fight, which is insane. This card has been a mess. It feels cursed, doesn't it? There's something going on, there's something in the water.
it
But
is.
Anthony Smith is now facing Roman Dolidze. What's your prediction for this fight and why?
I think Delete is gonna probably beat Anthony. I think Anthony is a little. I love the boy, right? A dream fight of mine was once of a day him versus Paul Craig. I thought that would have been an absolute
Being a
fantastic
banger,
fight.
that.
It'd have been amazing. It probably still would be now, but I think Anthony Smith he either comes out and he's either a perfect fighter or it's like he's never been in the octagon before. And I think because when I was in New Zealand, I'd watch Roman Dolidze, in the rankings on the fight nights and things. When you get to recognize a fighter and you're like, oh yeah, I do remember this guy. He's got some serious power. If Anthony tries to stand with him, I think he could get finished. His best
Yeah.
bet is to utilize, go back to the meat and taters that he knows, utilize that jujitsu, get him to the ground, and he stands a hell of a chance there. I don't think that's going to happen, though. I think Roman is probably going to get a TKO win in the second round. Do you
Yeah.
think Anthony's going to cement his place and prove that Lionheart is still here to stay in the light heavyweight?
Yeah, I really do. I think Smith is going to get this done. And the reason why is because this is such a short notice fight. I don't think each guy's really had that time to prepare for each other. They've not had that time to analyze all the tape, figure out what's going to happen. And this is going to come down to experience. And Anthony Smith has that experience. He really does. And I think he's going to put it on Dolodze. And I think he's going to get the job done this time. But again, like you were saying with Smith, if he doesn't turn up, it's like he's never been in the octagon before. So it is a big worry. There's a lot of what ifs with this card, isn't there? And I
Mhm.
think that's somewhat what makes it so exciting, right?
Absolutely, yeah. We've said that before. Sometimes this is nowhere near a snooze fest or a Cocoa Pops card, as you'd call it.
No.
Watching in the morning with your cereal. Nowhere near. But it is a fight where it's swapped and changed that much. You're like, oh, Jesus. Is it, you got to keep up with it. You've almost got
Yeah.
to set alerts on your phone to the UFC updates. But it still makes it exciting. It's a good UFC fan card, like you said at the beginning of the video. It's not just tuning in because the biggest name in the history of the sport is there. It's a good fans card. You know what I mean?
100%, yeah. It definitely doesn't have that, you know, casual mainstream appeal, does it? But for if you're a real MMA fan, this is a cracking card, isn't it? It really is. But moving on to a cracking MMA fight, we have Michael Venom Page facing Ian Gary to open up the card. Mark, what's your prediction for this fight and why?
I honestly don't know. I swear to God, I think it's the strangest fight that you can put on. Brian Gary on the rise against a veteran like MVP in his second UFC fight. You'd think they'd want to avoid that. But at the same time, you've got to look at that and go, this isn't WWE. You don't push someone, and then it's the right time to do things. This is just fighting.
Yeah.
And it's sink or swim, isn't it? You've got to be able to put them together. If if you put a gun to my head, I'm probably gonna say honestly, I don't know. MVP. I think we've seen Ian Gary through his previous fights. Sometimes he does get clipped. He is very young and he's still learning.
Yeah.
MVP is a veteran. Yeah, he showboats, and there's part of you that thinks, I want you to get knocked out, you prick. But I think that is going to play to his advantage. I think he's going to be able to get into the head of Ian Gary. What do you think? Do you think Ian Gary can defeat MVP?
Um, I'm really not sure. I really, really don't know with this card. Like you were saying, it's such a tricky fight. And last time I doubted MVP, he proved me so wrong. But I'm gonna doubt him again. I think Ian Gary doesn't put himself in danger unnecessarily. He fights from range. He's happy to move in and out and stay out of it. And I don't think he's going to get drawn into that firefight that would favor MVP. I think he's just going to pick away, keep his distance as much as possible, and get that decision win.
That's the thing. I could see my prediction happening, and I can also see your prediction happening as well.
Mm.
That's what makes us UFC fans, though, right? You know,
Yeah.
you check in. That's opening the main card. That's insane, is that?
It's a cracker, isn't it? And I love when they open up big cards with big fights like this. It brings the whole momentum up, isn't it? I know we always talk about it like Chandler versus Gagey, but come on, like to open a card with such a big fun fight, it's the way to go. And I wish the UFC did this a bit more often, put a really banger on an opening fight. But Mike,
Yeah.
just back to your earlier point, when you were talking like why are MVP and Ian Garrett fighting each other? It's a tricky one, isn't it? Because like you were saying, Ian Gary is a rising star, MVP is this veteran. But I feel in some ways MVP is a rising star in the UFC. He's a big name. A lot of people know him. And if he can get a big win over Ian Gary here, that can push him towards a title shot straight away. And the same for Ian Gary. And I feel like with MVP, he's here for a short time. He'll probably do what? 4, 5 fights maximum. And then that's it. He's gone. We'll never see him
Yeah.
again. So I think do what you can with him now. Push him as much as possible. And do you think a win for either guy here will put them up for a title shot against the winner of Leon versus Bilal?
See, I still don't think they're quite there. I still think maybe one more fight because Ian Gary's last fight was Jeff Neal, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You know, he was getting slammed quite a bit as well. You know, it's back and forth. So Jeff Neal, I love the guy. I love watching him fight, but he's not quite up there. And then you go, well, you're against MVP. This is his second ever UFC fight.
Yeah.
Does that really warrant a title shot? Not really. Give him Colby Covington after the back and forth that they've had. I want to see that fight. I want to see them go on. And after his last performance, I want Colby to get battered.
You traitor, Mark. But yeah, even though there's been a lot of swapping and changing on this card, it's still incredibly exciting because there's a lot on the line for all of these guys. Thank you for watching. If you can like, comment, and subscribe, it really does help us out.